Hello, my name is Dan Johnson and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a Big Finish haul, hence I've decided to shoot this in this angle. I believe that my collection's grown quite a lot recently. I've had lots of deliveries, and because of the way that Big Finish churns stuff out, you do get at least a release every month. And I've also been playing a bit of catch up in some cases, so I've got enough stuff worthy of doing another video. I do wish I cleaned this because we're now sort of reaching the very top of this area with Big Finish stuff. A thing that I've always found is a bit of an issue with not collecting them but doing collection videos around them is that the collection changes so much because they are, as I said, pumping up many releases, which is obviously a good thing. There's plenty of content to consume each month, so you're never really going to get bored of it. Because there's so much coming out, I never quite have everything that I've ordered here. So as of today, as in date of filming, which I believe this is the 7th of January, I have two things that currently haven't arrived that I have ordered. The first is Time War 3. It's one box set of the Paul McCann range, and it's not here because it's out of stock currently. The second thing is something that just came out this week, which was a release called 40, which is Peter Davison's 40th anniversary as the Doctor since Castrovalva, I believe. So that set looks pretty cool. And I have listened to part of it at this point, but the CD is not here yet. But we still have plenty of stuff to talk about. We'll start with the vinyls, I suppose. Start off with a nice wide angle, so I can fit these huge things in. So this is something I've been getting into very, very recently. You can see there's a ha as a single up at the top there. There's other stuff behind that. But in terms of Doctor Who, the first one I have, I believe chronologically, because I've done it with the 8th Doctor side, is the Echoes of Extinction, which is a very interesting way to do a vinyl because, as you can see, David Tennant's on one side and on the other is Paul McGann, and the Paul McGann side is sort of pre-Time Lord Victorious, and the second half, which is the second half of the vinyl, is all after Time Lord Victorious with David Tennant. So there's a nice sort of book-ending element to this vinyl. It's also a sweet little half-an-hour story, and I think for me the coolest thing about it is the fact that the vinyl split, so you get two colours. I won't show you now, but here's an image. So you get two colours, which is a nice little design for a vinyl. The vinyls for things like the Mythmakers and stuff have that kind of element as well, but they're very difficult to get your hands on. The next release that I have is the release for the Ninth Doctor Adventures, which is Ravagers. This was a pretty interesting story. It's very convoluted, but on vinyl it plays quite well. There's lots of nice conversational scenes. Christopher Eccleston is fantastic, and I bought that lot in a bundle, and also in that bundle was, of course, Responds to All Calls, which is the second set with the Ninth Doctor. I prefer this one over the first one, to be honest. This has some really lovely stories. The first one, which is slipped my mind at this point, but I thought that was it. Girl Deconstructed. I think that was it. That one was a brilliant story, as well as the final one, which was the Planet of the Living and the Dead. Planet of the End, which was the last one. I really enjoyed that one. And then on the third one, we have Lost Warriors, which involves the Cybermen. This is a really, really good set. The Cybermen story, I think, was beautifully executed. The story before it, which was about like the Last Hunt, I believe it was called, the hunting season, which was a brilliant, brilliant little story. About sort of creatures and war, and this set's theme is Lost Warriors, and then the final one is Lady Macbeth, which is something that isn't really my cup of tea. I don't like the overdramatic that's the wrong word really. I don't like the kind of theatric story based sort of things. I prefer more sci-fi or grounded sci-fi at least. But I did quite enjoy that third episode. So overall, this is probably my favourite set out of the three. The fourth one comes out in February, called Old Friends, which seems very, very interesting, with the Brigadier, I believe. Something that is now completely wrapped up is Dalek Universe, which has been my favourite release of 2021. The series, I think, has just been absolutely beautiful. It's been so well made. They've done an absolutely brilliant job on it. Listening to the second release really inspired me to get the 3, and I'm so glad that I did. I think they're absolutely beautiful. So that's the first one. The second one is here with this amazing cover. Look at that. Doesn't that look amazing? And then you have the third cover, which is very explosive, and is, of course, the finale to the lot with Terry Malloy playing Davros. This series was so well executed. I really can't stress how much I enjoyed it. I did a video talking about why you need to listen to Dalek Universe. Just what a series. I'm afraid that's it of vinyls, but I do intend to get some more at some point. But then we go into DVD releases, CD releases. The first release here is Legacy of Time, which was the first release I ever bought. It is a really lovely release. It gives you a nice taster of lots of different Doctors and lots of different elements. Paul McGann, I think, was my favourite story out of all of them. It's called Lies and Ruins, I believe. That was an amazing story. I really enjoyed that one. But there's lots of really interesting stuff in there. I think Collision Course was... I don't want to spoil it, but I think Collision Course was very, very good. I was gonna directly point out something that happens in the plot, but decided not to. And then in 2021, this was released, which was masterful. It's kind of like Legacy of Time, but with the Master. It was to celebrate 50 years of the Master. It's a very convoluted, sort of like big epic scale story, but I listened to it a few times. The wrap up is very brisk. Like they really wrap it out quickly. But overall, Masterful was an excellent release. It gives you plenty of interactions between Masters, which is a good thing, which is really the purpose of it, as well as giving you a couple of like extra bits. Legacy of Time is one like 6-part thing with different Doctors each episode, but this one's got lots of different elements. So you've got Masterful on 3 discs, and you've got I Am the Master, which is a short trip, and then you have The Switching, which is another short trip, and then you have the Terror of the Master, which is a brand new release just for this one. Which I think was brilliant, beautifully captured the 70s. I really mean to listen to this story another time, beautifully narrated by John Coleshaw. And then wrapping out the kind of big digibook, I suppose, elements, we have the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 2. I'm afraid I don't have Volume 1. Volume 1 was completely sold out in this digibook form. Because otherwise I would have bought it. But this is a collection of 3 nice stories with David Tennant and Billie Piper. And of course, Rose's mum as well. Ice Warriors and alike in that set. I really enjoyed all 3. Can't say there were anything special, but they were all really enjoyable stories. The third set, was this one here with Donna Noble. It was never designed to be this kind of epic arc-based thing, but it was supposed to be 3 individual stories because at this point David Tennant didn't appear much in Big Finish, and during lockdown he's been able to, so they've been able to do lots of really cool stuff with him. But this is a really nice sort of gateway thing into Big Finish because they're very simple stories. 1 Mile Down, which is a full sci-fi allegory for racism and corporate greed, I suppose, as well, with 1 Mile Down, which is a pretty imaginative story. And then you have The Creeping Death, which was a fun little listen with fog during London in the 1950s. Yeah, 1952. Then down on this sort of next row, we have Unit, which is going to take me a second to move over, but we'll go through them one by one. So, Unit 1, Extinction, was a really, really good story with the Autons. It was very much back to basics, but it was a really fun adventure with this new Unit crew. Series 2, as they're called, was Shut Down, and Shut Down was a very much an independent release. I think that the first one relied a lot on the Autons to kind of carry it, but with this one they went with something different. They added in its own monster, and I think it worked quite well. It was still a very fun adventure. Then the third release, which was Silence, when they went back into Doctor Who and they plucked out a villain, this time being the Silence, and it's a sequel to the Day of the Moon plot where Eunice is kind of picked up, and it's kind of like a secret invasion. It's a pretty good story, but I can't say it was my favourite. Then we have Unit Assembled, and Unit Assembled was a really, really cool homage to 70s Who and old unit meeting new unit. So you've got Katie Manning, John Levine, Richard Franklin, and you've got them facing against Silurians primarily, but also an appearance by the Sea Devils. It was a really fun, action-packed adventure, that one. I haven't listened to Encounters, but I believe that it's 1/2 Sontaran story, 1/2 Dalek story. I don't know whether that works, and I can't say much about the set, but that is now in the collection. As well as Series 6, which was the series that really got me into the unit series with the Cybermen, which was called Cyber Reality. I mean, I absolutely adore the Cybermen. I adore Derek Jacobi as the Master. There was just this great atmosphere within this story. It's 4 hours long, as they all are, apart from Encounters, I believe. I really enjoyed the action-packed elements, the kind of espionage elements. So that kind of started it all off for me. Then we have Visitations, which pays homage to the Irk in Space, but also the Mind of Evil. I can't remember the character's name, but there she is, from the Mind of Evil. But as I haven't listened to that one, I have to just stick it on the shelf until I do. And then the final set, which is Insurrections, which was a set I also haven't listened to because it was part of the 3 that I just got. But this one includes River Song. And that's now in the shelf. And then the newest release in the unit range is Unit Between Two Worlds. Now, this, for me, is the beginning of the new era for Unit. The whole arc is called Nemesis, and there's some really interesting elements being set up here, but there's also a nice little story within it as well. So overall, I'm quite looking forward to see what Nemesis has to offer. But at the same time, I don't know what it has to offer yet because we're so early into it. We'll just have to find out. And then finally, at the back of the shelf is Unit Torchwood, in fact, the other one. So this is Outbreak. I bought this about a year ago. It's all about a deadly virus that is killing people, basically. You go through multiple stages. It's a real end-of-the-world scenario. Quite dark. There's a lot of... Even though you can't see it, it's quite graphic. But I quite enjoyed that. It's a bit creepy, though, listening to it, as I did in February, I believe, of last year, where we were currently in lockdown in the UK. So that was a bit creepy. And I think it probably added to it, to be honest. But as a 3-hour story, it passes quite well, and I quite enjoyed it. I wouldn't say that Torchwood was something that I was particularly pursuing. I just found that release really stood out to me because I enjoyed Miracle Day and Children of Earth because of its huge scale. So I thought that if something was going to appeal to me, it would be Outbreak. Then, as a weird kind of part of the collection, I suppose, we have Forgotten Lives, which is a story I own on CD, but do not own the download for because I bought it on eBay. I paid like £4 for it one day, and I was like, hey, I would love to be able to get a big finish, and because I saw that it was cheap, I just bought it. Partially, I regret it because it means that I can't listen to the download, but then again, I need to listen to this because it has nearly been a year since I bought it, and I just haven't had it on the shelf, and I've just been listening to other stuff. So it's on the list, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to listen to it. Annoyingly, the final Torchwood release won't fit at the end, so I've got to put it on the next level. For anyone that enjoys kind of like chronological order, I have that. But because I'm putting them in the shelf backwards, I'm afraid it's completely ruined during this moment. But as far as I understand it, chronologically, the first releases that we go into on the shelf in terms of Doctors is Dalek Universe, which I bought also on CD. I initially never intended to buy them on vinyl because at the time I did not have a turntable to play them, but now I do. Dalek Universe, once again, amazing series, lovely artwork. Not much more I can say on it, and I'm pretty sure I'm repeating myself anyway because I did say it when I was talking about the vinyls, but they go lovely with the spines on the shelf. Something that was not released on vinyl out of the Dalek Universe range was the Dalek Protocol, which is a 4th Doctor story that acts as a kind of prequel to the series. I found that was a really good adventure. Nice little 4-part adventure with Daleks. You're introduced to Mark 7 and Jane Slavin's character, Anya Kingdom. I just thought that was a really nice little story written by Nicholas Briggs. That did come with a mistaked cover, so they accidentally printed the spine wrong. They put 2 O's or something on. Yeah, on the corner they put the Dalek Protocol with 2 O's, which was a mistake. And that's why there's a replacement. I just don't have the heart to throw it away, I don't think. But then we come on to my next two releases. Now, over the past 2 years, they have done this release, which is called Out of Time. Annoyingly, I have, for some reason, switched the cover on the Pete Davidson one, but not on the Tom Baker one, which is a strange thing to do. I'm going to pick them up so you don't get that horrible glare in the camera. So you have this one with Tom Baker and Daleks, a really, really good story. If you're into the whole interactions with multiple doctors, that's something you're really going to love. And classic monsters like Daleks and Cybermen. There's a third release coming out in June, I believe, which is going to feature the Sixth Doctor and Weeping Angels. I look forward to seeing the cover of that because the covers of these have been absolutely brilliant. I'm afraid they have committed Spineside, as I call it, with these releases. They've got the colour wrong, they've added in the title of the episode, the logo's changed ever so slightly. What a mess. But that kind of stuff does annoy me. But it's not going to annoy me as much as some of the other releases that we're going to see as we go along. Then we have a little oddity, which is going to go at the end here, which is The Year of Martha Jones. This was a pretty recent release, the end of 2021 this came out. It's a bunch of stories, mostly I didn't understand what they were going at with this series, and then it clicked with me during episode 2. I understood that, so they were showing the time that Martha spent alone during the year, but they were telling a story across all 3 parts, but they were also telling us mini Doctor Who stories through the stories she literally told people. And I thought that was quite a clever way of doing it. It's nice that Big Finish are filling in the gaps, I suppose. So if you're really interested in Martha, and you're interested about what that kind of time was like for her, that would be a good release for you. I can't say I particularly am a big Martha fan, but then at the same time, I just couldn't help but be absolutely amused by the series. Then we have the Ninth Doctor Adventures. Now, these 3 I've shown before in terms of vinyls, but now we're showing the CD version. So we have Lost Warriors, as I mentioned earlier, great series. Then we have Responds to All Calls, another great series, the lovely little cover. And then you have Ravagers at the end, which was a nice starting off point, which was a nice sort of timey-wimey story. As you can see here, they've committed Spineside again. In fact, they commit Spineside with just about every set that they release. The unit ones are all different. Now I've pointed that out, you're not going to unnotice it, by the way. I just want to point that out to you. And so with the light moved in order to stop the glare, we go into the next bunch of releases, which is my most recent purchase, which was Time War. So we have Time War 4 there. Looks amazing with Davros. That just looks epic. I really can't wait to get into that one. I haven't listened to that one, of course. Then we have Time War 3, which is missing currently and shall be dispatched in due course. But until then, we have Time War 2, which has a lovely little cover. And obviously these ones get individual covers, as do the unit ones. With some releases now being 2022, they've switched things around. So like the Martha Jones one doesn't have individual covers for its episodes, but these ones do, for better or for worse. But Time War, from the first set, which is the only one that I've listened to, which looks like this, and looks pretty cool, it has lots of interesting elements to focus on and talk about. So you've got elements such as the Doctor deciding not to fight within the war, but you have Daleks fighting within the war. You have this whole sort of sense of desperation from Gallifrey and the people fighting in the war. You get the people that are stuck in sort of the crosshairs between the two, and you obviously have its own story as well. So I found that this arc, as a 16 box set range, is going to be a really fun one for me, I believe, because I've been really interested by the Time War because it's such an interesting time. Russell Davies said that war was just, a battle, really. It wasn't much something to be interested when he was talking about it, the Time War, when he was doing Series 1. But for me, I think that putting people into war and seeing how they react is like the coolest part about it. So I hope I enjoy it. And so now we backtrack through the rest of the 8th Doctor era with Stranded. And Stranded is a really, really fun set. I think it's different, which is the most important thing. Because at this point, if you go chronologically, of course, the Eighth Doctor's run has been very sci-fi based, and it's been quite explosive. There's been a lot of sort of big battles, and it all became a bit too much. I think I never listened to the first set, which was Dark Eyes or Doom Correlation, but Stranded is taking things back to basics, not in terms of Doctor Who stories, but in terms of the Doctor's abilities. He's completely alone, I suppose, stuck on Earth, sharing a flat with his friends, and it's all about the adventures that they get up to within those close parameters. But then, as the series has gone on, they've branched out a bit more, and they've gone into the future. They've gone into the past. I think second one was probably my favourite. The Unit episode, I think, was brilliant, and I'm interested to see where it goes with the next one, which comes out February, which is the final release. In that, so maybe I don't know what they're going to do with the Ninth Doctor now. But it's definitely interesting, exciting to see what's going to happen next. Then we go into the previous sort of series of box sets that went before, which was Ravenous. Ravenous was a pretty fun series overall. I think it really had its issues, to be honest. There were a lot of stories in here that I felt were like not badly written or badly made. I just had no intention of revisiting them. So, for example, here's Ravenous 4, which I think was probably one of the better ones out of the lot. But for me, if you look at, for example, Stranded 3, one of the stories, the first and the last one, I think, are arc-based. They are like mainly focused on arc. So, re-listening to them, if you're not listening to them in order, or even knowing what's going to happen, you kind of lose that element from the story. Something that Big Finish did cure, I think, with their most recent box sets. But I really enjoyed Ravenous 2 with the Masters. That was quite a cool story and quite a big epic scale, big epic finale, tying everything together, which is very cool. Ravenous 3 had Companion Piece, and Companion Piece I think was absolutely brilliant. It introduced me to Bliss, which is why since that day I've been meaning to buy Time War. So I really enjoyed her. It's got Riverson. It's a really, really good episode of Companion Piece. And then you have the second set, the highlight being the Christmas episode that's within it. Listen to it every year. I think it's a really good two-parter. It's called Better Watch Out and Fairy Tale of Solberg, with the Krampus. And then you have the Robots of Kaldor, which is not the name of the story. The story is called Escape from Kaldor, but it does have the Kaldor robots, and I absolutely love Robots of Death, so that was kind of a bonus. And then Ravenous 1, I think, was probably the shakier start now that I look back across the 3 other sets. But I did enjoy it. I did think it was a nice box set and sort of opened things up nicely. But, with the benefit of hindsight, looking across the series, it's nothing compared to the others. And then we come into Time Lord Victorious, which was a bit of a disappointment for me at the end of the day. I think that there was a lot of wasted opportunity, and I think it was kind of restricted by the whole narrative of having to tell things within small amounts of space, but not just contain stories, but it had to follow on from things that have happened before. For example, I think this one or one of them follows on from like the big end to the first book, or maybe even the second book, in fact. Like, what a cool thing to have, but then once you take the context away from that, because at that point I hadn't listened to the books, kind of cheapened the story a bit for me. It's a bit like Die Hard with Daleks, that one. So that's fairly good, but obviously the context of it was a bit lacking. The Enemy of My Enemy, which I can hardly remember, to be honest. But I think my favourite out of the 3 was this one, which was He Kills Me Not. It's a Western-like story with an Ood called Brian, who is a bounty hunter, and he's looking for these 2 people. And I found that quite a fun little listen. I think it stood by itself a lot more, which is probably why I enjoyed it a lot more. But overall, Dawn of Victorious, I don't know whether it quite worked because of the fact you had to be completely interlocked with everything that was coming out, which is something that someone can't do. And even if you attempt to, you're not always going to be understanding what's going on, and there's going to be elements of the plot that are going to fall short for you, and things like that. So I suppose that because of that, it made the series a bit bizarre, but it was a cool idea, I suppose. Then the final release with the 8th Doctor that I own is the Silver Turk. Now, I absolutely love the Cybermen, as I mentioned many times, and I really enjoyed the Silver Turk. I think it was a great story for the Cybermen. I think the Cybermen are definitely overlooked a lot as kind of just robots by the show itself. And Big Finish, they always cure that. Take Lost Warriors, for example. But this one was a nice sort of gothic-y story, so I quite enjoy that. But sadly, that's all I have from the monthly range. And then currently anyway, the earliest Doctor story that I have is the 11, with the 6th Doctor. Now, I enjoyed this set quite a lot. It was fun to see Mike Bonner back as the 11, and playing off a different Doctor that wasn't Paul McGann, even though we love Paul McGann to bits. But it was a fun sort of 3-part story within that, with lots of interesting interactions and a really cool climax. So I put the 11 down at that end. And then, so if we take a look at all of them together, we have quite a lot of stuff within this little corner. I'm going to have to move them around in some way in order to fit more in, because there are more releases coming out in 2022. As I mentioned, 40, for example, but some more 9th Doctor episodes, some more 10th Doctor episodes. I'm sure that there's plenty to be looking forward to into next year. I think that's probably the best I'm going to get because of the glare, as you can tell, from the lights behind me. But that is the lot currently. It's quite extensive now. There's a lot of really fun stuff here, and I haven't listened to a couple of pieces, but I do intend to. I do listen to everything that I buy. I don't just buy things willy-nilly. I do take the time to listen to them all. I'm aiming for about 1 release per month, if there's anything I'd like to buy from Big Finish. But there's not really much else for me to say, but thank you very much for watching. I hope you do enjoy this collection video. I shall do an update maybe at the end of the year, but I doubt it, probably about this time next year. I'll be doing another one, and I'll be talking about everything that's come out, including all the old stuff, and how I'm even storing it come 12 months' time. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you'd make sure you go like, subscribe if you're new, and I shall see you soon.